I saw tears that were fake, speeches that were fake, money for doctors not available, money to pay civil servants not available, but there's money to buy a bloody jet. Shut up, useless man. We have hard questions that must be answered.
Okay.
And that one is beyond the sun. If Raila said what Oburu said, I can tell you, I don't want to speculate, but what happened in 1969, when Jomo Kenyatta was opening the Russia would have happened again.
Oh.
There would have been a playback. What gives him the idea that he can do as he wishes? This is not his personal house, this is not Sogoi. I think the president needs to stop being simplistic.
Is there a vacuum post Raila?
Play one clip where Ruto has spoken truthfully.
A very good day to you and welcome to Philip Kisia Unscripted. My name is Jadel Kibero. It's always my pleasure to have you joining us for our conversations here. Conversations which we hope will help our political leaders in making better policy decisions and informed political moves. I'm so grateful that you're always here every single day, tuning in to this conversation, sharing with as many people as you can so that we engage with Kenyans on matters to build this country. Philip, thanks for making time for me this Thursday. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
How has the week been for you?
The week has been quite interesting. I mean, I had a very robust discussion with architects yesterday, which lasted for over 3 hours. Yeah, so we had some very interesting discussions. But of course, there are a few things that caught my attention this week. One, and I would like you to look for that video. Senator, and he's my very good friend, Senator Boni Khalwale, who is a doctor, and he spoke in the Senate, and he spoke very well. In fact, he spoke music. And I'm sure if he had lost any votes in Kakamega, he has regained 50% of the votes as a result of that video. That he spoke in Parliament and in the Senate yesterday.
We be a country where we see nothing wrong with seeing doctors carrying twigs and leaves in streets when the same doctors are supposed to be in hospital treating people. How can we be a country, Mr. Speaker, where business people make presentations formal that they were forced to deliver fertilizer, Mr. Speaker, in a conduit that has resulted in Kenyans being sold fake fertilizer? How can we see nothing wrong with it? And we are happy that the Minister of Agriculture is today sitting in office, sitting pretty, when he is responsible for the mess of the sale of counterfeit fertilizer.
You know, he talked about, he took responsibility for having brought this government, and he confirmed that he still loves the government and he's serving it. Okay? But he talked about two things. One, he talked about fertilizer and was wondering why CS Linturi has not taken responsibility. Then he talked about the doctor strike and how we are mistreating the doctors. The doctors should be in hospital treating Kenyans. But you're short of saying that the government has failed and they should opt to resign. That is what I was expecting him to tell us.
But he's in government.
Let us resign. We have failed as a government.
He's in UDA. He can't tell that to the president.
No, he should have. He should have been bold enough. He should have moved. He could have moved from 50% to 100% votes. But yesterday he gained 50% for that statement. The other very interesting statement, highlight that I came across, and of course I did a tweet on it yesterday. It was about Kimani Ichung'wah, the man in charge of budgets. He is talking about buying a president a new jet because the president's jet is about 30 years old. Remember, we are in a third world country. Remember, we cannot even pay doctors. We cannot even pay civil servants properly, other than ministers and permanent secretaries. We cannot reward people who actually work. Because we are thinking of getting back these people who are called caste. So we have completely misplaced priorities. But what shocked me is for Kimani, at this time when the president himself is pushing for people to tighten their belts, they want to open their belts because their stomachs are bulging, they're about to burst. We don't know what will come out of those stomachs. But look at it this way. The president of the most powerful nation, the richest nation on earth, United States of America, Air Force One is about 34 years old.
Oh, really?
It was actually manufactured in 1990, and it came into use in 1998.
Yeah.
So I think those 8 years they were preparing so that it has all the features necessary for, to cater for the President of the United States. But put it this way, manufactured in 1990. Just about the same time, this one we call it what, Harambe 1 or something?
Yeah.
Yeah? Just about the same time. We are thinking about replacing ours, and America have not even given it a thought. What misplaced priorities? If the president sanctions this particular item, or procuring a new jet for himself for opulence purposes, and people are suffering, people are dying from flu and everything, I think it is time for people to get back to Mandaman.
You know, Kisia, you say that, but I'm just thinking we're going to talk about CDF General Ogola's crash. What if they believe that this Ruto's plane or jet is almost will actually get us to that point where we have to have this conversation about the president?
Listen, let us.
What should they do?
Listen, Jed. You know, we're talking about oranges and apples. You look at the equipment that the CDF was flying, but you know, aircrafts, and you know, I have the privilege. I have the privilege of having an aviation engineer in my house, trained in the best university in the world, Embry-Riddle, which deals with nothing but aviation.
Oh.
Okay? And, you know, he's a qualified engineer, certified by Federal Aviation Authority as a safety specialist.
Okay.
So, you know, I can talk with a lot of authority because I'm back up in the house. So, aircraft is not about the number of years. There are issues to do with the number of hours that you put in. Number two, maintenance of the equipment. You know, an equipment can be 10 years, but it's poorly maintained. It will be unworthy. So I'm assuming that the billions that we set aside to maintain that aircraft have been used for maintaining that aircraft. That aside, it is not a priority as we speak. People need food. People need shelter who have been displaced from the floods. That's not a priority. He can use Kenya Airways.
Commercial flights.
Yeah, can use Kenya Airways or Emirates or Qatar. Yes.
Do you think government is shooting itself in the foot? Every single time we hear them talking about the presidential dais, now it's about the jet. Are we trying, every time we come out and we say we need to live within our means, and then we act the way we are acting, is government just making people hate them?
Of course. How can you ask people to tighten their belts when you are releasing your belts? Because your stomachs are bulging, full of air and other things, full of money, stolen resources from our people. This is a government that really, you know, the action is completely out of tune with what they're speaking. This is a government that doesn't care about people. How can you talk about jets at this point in time? Washindwe hawa. And Kimani chungwa, this is not your money, this is public money. Please, stop buying those bloody jets. We need money to educate our children, take to school. Capitation has not been taken into account. Money for capitation is not available. Money for doctors is not available. Money to pay civil servants is not available. But there's money to buy a bloody jet. Shut up, useless man.
Now, we have to talk about this. Conversation for today is about CDF General Francis Ogolla. We want to finish this conversation because people have been telling me Kisi hasn't talked about this, at least not in my show. Azimio la Umoja has demanded a 2 prolonged probe into the helicopter crash, in case you didn't know. They're saying that military investigation is opaque. We need this to be as transparent as possible, and therefore they're advocating for a parliamentary investigation alongside a judicial inquest. Kisia, let's start from this. You look at how government is responding towards the crash. President William Ruto, of course, telling Kenyans that they will have an investigation. We will know the truth within 3 months. CS Murkomen says it's not in my docket. How do you assess how government has responded towards Francis Ogola's helicopter crash?
First of all, let me quickly, you said I've not spoken on this matter. I've spoken, maybe not this on this channel, but I've spoken. But I'll be very fast, very quick. First of all is to send condolences to the family of General Ogolla, particularly Mzee Ogolla, who, in my view, was not treated properly. Ogolla came to be Ogolla because of this old man. But it seemed that everybody seemed to have ignored this old man. But having said that, condolences to the family. I also want to condole with the others who lost their lives, Brigadier Saidi, Colonel Keitani, Major Magondu, Captain Litali, a very young man, Senior Sergeant Mureithi, Sergeant Omonding, and lastly, Sergeant Nyawira, again a very young lady who we lost. Of course, this was heavy. It is a heavy matter. Heavy in the sense that this is the first time we are losing a CDF in such circumstances. This is the first time. All the CDFs that we've had serve their term, go home, retire, and most of them are still alive. So this is the first time we're having a senior military officer dying in office under circumstances that we cannot understand. Okay? And we've lost a lot of well-trained officers. So, you know, it is a weighty matter. Again, don't forget that this office, CDF, has been doing ping-pong between 3 communities. The Coastarians have it, they have it again, then it goes Kalenjin, Kalenjins have it again, then it goes to Kikuyus, Kikuyus have it again, they have it again, then Kambas, they have it and have it. So it has gone round just within 4 communities. It was the first time that we are having somebody from the western part of this country occupying that office. So even before we could enjoy the fruits, so that this man can at least employ people from Western Kenya into the military and promote our people, we lose him. So we are feeling pain as people who come from that region. It is heavy on us, extremely heavy. Okay? And so having said that, I just want to say that the government, first of all, the aircraft accidents, you know, in terms of investigating them, this is a complex matter. It's complex. It involves so many other people. It's not just about the military. Yes, we have confidence in our military. Our military have capacity to investigate. Kenya Civil Aviation have capacity to do that job. But in such a circumstance, you have to call in the aircraft manufacturer, and there are different players. You know, maybe the frame, as my son says, would have been built by a different company, the engine by a different company, the propeller by a different company. So there are so many players who come and, you know, and put up that aircraft together. Different parts are manufactured in different places. So the investigation goes beyond our boundaries. The manufacturers must come here to investigate, find out what caused the accident, because I would want to know if it is as a result of one of their parts, how best can they deal with improving that part so that in future it doesn't cause an accident. But even if you just come to a situation here, because the circumstances that have led to this aircraft crash are very unclear, I think there's need for that space to be opened up so that we use, of course, the ICAO regulations in terms of investigation. We use the Kenya Civil Aviation, and we use the military. We involve the family. But because General belonged to Kenya, he was not the general of William Ruto or the general of a family. He was the general of, that's why it's called the Kenya Defense Forces. Kenya Defense Forces belongs to who? Kenya belongs to who?
Kenya.
Belongs to Kenyans. Therefore, there is need for these investigations to go wider.
So I go back
so that we give it confidence. Because if you try and close out some players, of course, it doesn't matter the outcome. We'll have suspicion. And like Oburu said, there are so many, deaths that are so unclear that have happened in that region, that have happened, that up to date we don't understand how they happened. There's Aoko died. Yeah, we have not got a report.
Yeah.
JM died.
Yeah.
Musando died.
Yeah.
Argwis Kodek died. You get me?
Yeah.
Tom Mboya died. Jacob Juma died. And then the president says, okay, have confidence in me, because the issues of extrajudicial killings will not happen.
Yeah.
Then I remembered, is my president being truthful? Because during Mandamano last year, it was last year, we lost 70 human beings. 70 Kenyans were killed with live bullets. What was that?
There's actually a report of 119 people who died out of killings.
Now there's 119,
year.
actually.
Yes.
119. You can imagine 119.
2023.
Yeah, so you can imagine. This is not a matter that can be taken lightly and for granted.
I want you to talk to me about, first of all, you've said it should go beyond the military. It should be open, the investigations. But what are the benefits, or say the drawbacks that come from Azimio's demand to have a true prolonged probe, both parliamentary and judicial inquest? Will this be advantageous, especially to the Kenyans thinking we need the truth and we need the truth as soon as possible?
There are a number of benefits or advantages that derive from taking a multi-approach. One is the level of scrutiny. Because if it is only one unit investigating, they will be limited in one way or another. But when you open it up, this one will see something that the other person would not have seen, this one will see the other person. So the results are likely to be enriched because of group participation.
Yeah.
Okay? Then the other one is, of course, discounting of information and miscommunication or mistrust. When there are a number of people and they agree on a report and they sign it off, the possibility that there will be mistrust is lowered. Are we clear?
Yes, I'm getting you.
Of course, then there's the issue of bias. When you have so many people, some are international, some are from the manufacturer, some are families involved, people, you open up that space, of course, the possibility that the report will be biased are greatly reduced. Then finally, we talk about systematic audits. That you want to audit the processes, yeah, in terms of maintenance, in terms of administration of the defense forces. So the audit is better, and the audit is enriched.
Okay.
Of course, obviously, there are disadvantages of having this group approach.
Yeah.
One, this is a highly sensitive area. It's military operation. Okay? If there's information that the government will want to keep us classified, the possibility that it will remain classified is compromised because of so many players coming in. You have so many players. So the chances that that confidential information will leak are high. Two, time taken, because see, there are different protocols. Every establishment has got its own protocol and its own time frame in carrying out assignments. So if you have several of them, of course, then the issue of time, time being wasted comes into play. Then the last one is the issue of expenses. Of course, it becomes expensive. Both, I've said in time, but also in terms of money. That there are many groups involved. The question then would be, who funds that investigation?
It's going to be government, obviously.
Of course, the manufacturers will come in. They've got their own budget. They'll fund their own expenses. But when stakeholders are involved, when no stakeholders, but family, civil society maybe, and so on and so forth, then the government must fund. But manufacturers, I can tell you, they have a budget. Okay. For in carrying out investigation, because it is to their benefit. They would want to exonerate themselves from any blame. So, but if just in case their part contributed to the crash, then they would want to find a way of doing what? Of improving that part.
Then I want to go to the part of why Kenyans are hitting out at the son of Francis Ogolla. Because of his concern with how Kenyans were hitting out of the president, saying, I've seen things on social media, I can tell you the president, the CES, they were good friends. And Kenyans are coming out to post his burial and saying, this guy was your father, but he was still our general. And therefore, you need to let investigations happen. Do you think there is validity in Kenyans, criticizing how Joel Ogolla was speaking?
You see, this young man, I must say, is grieving. Okay? And he must be allowed to grieve. He must be allowed to grieve the father, because he's talking about his father. And that we cannot stop him. Yeah? He can do whatever he wants because that is a father. And the relationship they have with the father is different from the relationship we as Kenyans have with the father. Okay? So to that extent, I will not fault the young man. Although where I come from, there are certain things that really considered to be deviant. Things like jumping into the grave to receive your father, where I come from, is not acceptable. Okay, where I come from. I don't know about my neighbors Luo, but I've spoken to a few Luo saying even them. That is space that you leave for the clan and people who are old, people, your father's age mates, and so on and so forth. Or, people who are not too close. The inner, your job is just, nucleus, your job is just to escort your father with, soil into the grave. But let the young man grieve. But again, on the flip side, I want him to appreciate the fact that Kenyans also have a right to mourn this gallant son of theirs. Because immediately your family releases you into public space, you no longer become family property, you become public property. Because they released him to serve Kenyans at a very high level. So he ceased to be a family property, he became public property. And therefore, to that extent again, these young men must allow Kenyans to mourn the way they see fit to mourn the general. But I think there are more serious matters that probably we should be looking at. Investigations must be independent and thorough. That one we cannot run away from.
Because that is where I was going.
The investigations must be independent and thorough.
Because the question is, Kisia,
because he cannot say leave the president alone. The president is a commander-in-chief. We would want, for example, to understand why the CDF flew with very junior officers. That's a question that they can answer. We would want to understand why the CDF flew in a military equipment that doesn't look very befitting to the CDF. We would want to understand. That's a question they can answer. From where we sit, the pilots are properly trained. From where we sit, the planning aspect, the coordination between the military, National Intelligence Services, Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, and all the authorities concerned in terms of planning for such an operation and such a trip are sound from where we sit. And we know we have qualified Kenyans. From where we sit, we know that the weather was not bad. The weather was conducive for takeoff. Okay? So we have hard questions that must be answered.
Okay.
And that one is beyond the sun. The son must understand that is beyond him.
Then how do we strike that balance between Kenyans thinking that the family or the son doesn't want investigation and their investigations must happen?
It must happen.
So there's no balance.
There's a balance. The balance here, Jed, is that the son must be allowed to mourn the father. He's mourning the father. That is one. The other side, Kenyans must be allowed to mourn. They are mourning their general, a gallant son. That's the balance. Allow us to mourn, and you mourn your father the way you would want to mourn your father.
I want us to be honest here and talk a little bit about Oburu Odinga, the senator, who said that there is a way governments can persuade families not to pursue investigations. Do you believe that Oburu Odinga was actually making sense in the case of Francis Ogola's conversation, especially after the son came and told us about Ruto's tears were not crocodile tears, he was close with the CSS. Do you think this could actually be a possibility?
You know, he's a young man. And again, you know, experience sometimes come into play in such issues. Oburu has been there for some time. He actually saw all these deaths, other assassinations. He has been a politician. The family has been in politics. So they understand about assassinations. Okay?
Yeah.
So to that extent, we must want to believe that what Oburu is saying could be having some truth. Okay? That, you know, let us not absolve the government. Remember, and this is on record, His Excellency the President, you know, made some pronouncements. He actually even suggested that Ogolla was actually in the group which attempted to block his victory. It is on record. Now, when somebody has made such a serious statement, and then a few months down the line, that person passes on through circumstances that are still not very clear, and then we remember this famous thing of his three things. Then, you know, somehow, whether he knew that he was talking about the three things, I don't know, because the general said, you can forgive me, you can court-martial me, or allow me to resign. Those are how many things?
MATATU.
Those how many? Now, you see, and therefore, we have every reason to believe, because these are utterances that came from His Excellency the President. It is not us. In fact, if the President had not spoken on this matter, he had appointed him as a CDF, he would have left it at that. Because there are certain matters, there are certain issues, when you talk one-on-one, that becomes private discussion. Number two, sensitive security matters are never brought to the public domain. Never. Those are sensitive public issues, and you bring it to the public. So he opened up that discussion, and the President has no choice but to allow us to interrogate this matter until the truth is found.
I want you then to tell me about the implications of interrogating these matters and the skepticism that the opposition has regarding the circumstances of this CDF's death. What impact does it have on the stability and credibility of this government?
It has the credibility. I mean, this government has suffered a credibility crisis because of the pronouncements that were made by the head of state. I don't repeat.
Mambo matatu.
Then, my friend Duale, the Minister for Defense, also uttered things that should never have been uttered. He came to the public, I think, in trying to come to his boss's defense, that, you know, the boss was did this, he didn't just settle for Ogolla because he looked at the competence, what have you, but he made certain pronouncements. You remember what Duale said? He said that he summoned the general to his house, and they had a discussion for 3.5 hours. Before now, he allowed him to go and meet the president. Number one, if that has happened in this country, we have never known. Generals are never summoned by civilians. Never. Generals are generals. We hold the defense forces in very high esteem. So when we start hearing that a general can be summoned, a 3-star general can be summoned by a civilian, we start getting very worried. Because the defense forces should be left to be operate professionally, using the command that has been established. Okay, because they're very structured in the way because if you summon a general, you're summoning the generals. Where do you appear in the command? Where do you appear in the command?
Even
where do you appear in the command?
The CS for defense, is it?
Who is the CS?
Is it really summoning?
A CS is just a CS of defense is a Karani. He's a clerk. He's a clerk. What is he or she?
I'm asking, is it really summoning, or is it having to have a conversation first?
You see, you cannot, military or the defense forces, if you must have a meeting of that nature, you have it at defense forces or defense headquarters. You don't have it in your private residence or any other place or in your office.
Okay.
Because these are military fellows. They must be respected. I think you asked whether this government has suffered a credibility crisis. They have suffered already. And from their own volition. It is not us who have punctured their credibility. They have punctured their own credibility.
I want us to finish this conversation, but before we talk about what steps can be taken to ensure that this doesn't happen again, or dealing with helicopter crashes, it's about Raila Odinga. I've had this conversation before with Herman Manyora. He's missing, his presence or absence, its effect on the said barrier. What do you think could have led to Raila Odinga missing, if it was intentional, and what could have been the effects if he appeared on that particular meeting?
You see, one, I don't want to speak on behalf of Raila Odinga because he was indisposed, so they say. He was indisposed.
Yes.
Can you question that?
No.
No. If I tell you I'm indisposed, I'm indisposed. Finished.
But what
maybe I can attend a function where there's not too much pressure. I know later on in the evening, you're still watching Mashemeji Derby.
Yeah.
That's not high pressure. But you know that function, Ogola's internment, was high pressure function. He would have been forced, the crowds, the people would have expected to say certain things that most likely, if he had spoken, he would have raised the temperatures.
Okay.
So I think avoiding it, either by design or whatever it was, I think it was a good thing. Because Raila's presence would have changed the mood of that function.
Okay.
The tensions would have been much higher.
Okay.
If Raila said what Oburu said, I can tell you, I don't want to speculate, but what happened in 1969, when Jomo Kenyatta was opening the Russia would have happened again.
Oh.
There would have been a playback.
Against?
I can tell you the tension, if Raila just appeared and spoke what the brother spoke, the tensions would have risen.
And therefore, it was a good decision.
It was a good decision, and maybe it wasn't by design. It was that way. It was meant to be that way, that he was indisposed on that particular day. And because they didn't want to get into that pressure, the doctors could have advised him to keep off to keep off anything that would raise his pressure.
All right. I'd like to finish this conversation by asking, how critical is it for government now to address first previous assassination suspicions and extrajudicial killings? How critical is it for that, and how can we improve, this system that we have in our country, where if a leader dies, everyone's first thought is he has been killed?
A simple, let's just be transparent in what we do. Allow proper investigations, independent investigations to be carried out. And then when they're carried out, please share the report with the people. Let us know the cause of the death for Saitoti. I don't know whether we know what killed Saitoti. I don't know whether we know what killed Ouko. I don't know whether we know what killed Argmis Kodek. I don't know whether we know what killed JM. My late father-in-law was the chairman of that company. They wrote a report. That report, up to date, I don't think has been made public. My late father, father-in-law, Leja Waske. Yeah, he was the nene. And you know, these reports are they never see sunlight. I hope that President Ruto will be the first one to say, here's a report. This is how it happened. If there was any human hand, then action must be taken. Because if there's any human hand that was involved in this one, that was intentional, just remember, you kill by the sword, you'll die by the sword.
Transparency it is. Thank you for tuning into this conversation with Philip Kisia, talking about CDF Francis Ogola's death. The country is still in mourning. Calls for his investigations to be made public from Philip Kisia here on today's conversation. Philip Kisia, final word for today.
My final take. You know, I think we need to learn to be a bit honest with ourselves and even the people we serve. As a community, as a country, we need to start being honest. Because honesty is something that will help us in transforming this nation. Where we are dishonest, people can see you through. I would want, particularly when we are facing such a crisis, a calamity, that people don't pretend to be who they are not. Like during General's internment, what I saw was most unfortunate.
What?
I saw fake faces. Fake. People who were talking so ill of General. I saw them in that funeral. I saw people who didn't like General. Fake hugs to the family. Fake. I saw people who spoke badly about the General, who were smiling broadly, or should I say they were grinning. They were fake. I saw tears that were fake, speeches that were fake. Can we as a nation, and we claim that we love God, can we start learning to be honest?
Final word.
Let us just be honest.
You're not going to mention names?
I will not mention names. Like my late father-in-law said, Mr. Stone, I have spoken. And even if you have not heard me, I have spoken.
Thank you for tuning in to this conversation today. Conversation which we hope will help our leaders in making better political moves, and actually change the way they behave. This is Philip Kisia Unscripted. Have yourself a lovely rest of your day.
What gives him the idea that he can do as he wishes? This is not his personal house, this is not for going. I think the president needs to stop being simplistic.
Is there a vacuum post Raila?
Play one clip where Ruto has spoken truthfully.